Today, I'll examine what it means for a company to go global and compete in the world marketplace. We'll explore how globalization reshapes business environments, creates new opportunities, and introduces new strategic challenges. Most importantly, we'll compare the main pathways companies use to enter foreign markets, from licensing agreements and partnerships to full-scale foreign direct investment. By the end, we'll have a clearer framework for understanding how organizations expand beyond their borders and make international growth more deliberate and strategic. This agenda follows a clear progression through the fundamentals of global business. We'll begin by defining globalization, looking at its main drivers and the forces reshaping the world economy. Next, we'll examine why companies expand internationally, including the opportunities they pursue and the risks they need to weigh. We'll then compare the major modes of market entry, from lower-risk exporting to full ownership. Finally, we'll bring these ideas together with a framework for choosing the strategy that best fits a company's business context. Globalization is more than international trade. It is a process through which businesses, economies, cultures, and governments become increasingly connected and dependent on one another across national borders. For forces are especially important. Economically, capital, goods, and labor move more freely. Technologically, the internet and digital tools reduce the impact of geographic distance. Culturally, people encounter shared values, global brands, and similar consumer behaviors. Politically, trade agreements and deregulation help open new markets. Together, these forces create a more interconnected global system. Companies typically go global for four connective reasons. First, international markets can create new revenue streams by reaching more customers when domestic demand is limited or saturated. Second, companies may gain cost advantages through lower labor, manufacturing, or raw material expenses in other countries. They may also respond to competitive pressure, following rivals abroad to avoid losing market share. Finally, global expansion can provide access to valuable resources, including proprietary technology, specialized talent, or natural resources. Going global is ultimately about growth, efficiency, defense, and securing capabilities that strengthen the business. Global market entry is not a one-size-fits-all decision. Companies can move along a spectrum, beginning with exporting, which generally requires less investment and exposure, then licensing and alliances, which involve deeper relationships and shared responsibilities. At the far end is FDI, or foreign direct investment, where the company takes greater ownership and control. The right choice depends on balancing risk and control with available resources, strategic goals, and the regulatory environment in the target country. As commitment increases, so do both potential rewards and exposure. Exporting is often the most accessible way for a company to enter an international market. The business keeps production at home, then sells its products abroad, either directly or with help from intermediaries. Direct exporting gives the company more control, stronger customer relationships, and potentially higher margins, but it also requires greater effort. Indirect exporting relies on agents or trading companies, reducing costs and risk while limiting market control. This approach is especially useful for small and mid-sized firms that want to test demand without committing significant capital. This slide covers entry mode 2, licensing and franchising. Licensing allows a company to expand internationally without directly operating in the foreign market. The licensor gives a licensee permission to use intellectual property, such as patents, trademarks, or processes, in return for royalties. This approach is common in pharmaceuticals and technology. Franchising goes a step further. The franchisor provides not only the brand, but also a complete business model, operating support, and guidance. In exchange, the franchisee pays fees and royalties, as we see with global brands like McDonald's and Subway. This entry mode involves a deeper commitment than simply selling into a foreign market. Companies work with local firms to share resources, knowledge, and risk. A strategic alliance is a cooperative agreement for a project or market, while both companies remain independent. A joint venture goes further. The partners create a separate business entity and share ownership, profits, and risks. The key advantage is a local partner's market knowledge and relationships, including regulatory connections and established distribution networks. That support can make market entry more informed and effective. This slide covers foreign direct investment, or FDI, the most committed way to enter a foreign market. A company either builds new facilities through a greenfield investment or acquires an existing local firm. Greenfield investment offers maximum control, but it requires substantial capital and time. Acquisition can provide faster market entry, although integrating a new operation may be challenging. In both cases, the company directly controls its strategy, operations, and profits. That's why multinationals such as Toyota, Apple, and Samsung use FDI when they want a long-term presence in a market. Choosing the right entry mode depends on the firm's circumstances, because no single strategy works in every market. Managers weigh 4 factors. First, risk tolerance. Higher investment options may offer greater returns, but they also increase exposure to political, economic, and currency risks. They also consider how much control is needed, especially when brand quality and customer experience matter. Available capital influences whether a firm begins with exporting or licensing. Finally, host country rules may limit foreign ownership, making joint ventures or licensing the only practical choices. The key takeaways are clear. Globalization connects economies, cultures, and markets, driven by technology, policy, and communication. Entry modes move from exporting to foreign direct investment, with increasing commitment and different risk-reward trade-offs. The best choice depends on capital, control, risk tolerance, and the target market's regulations.